Welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. I'm joined tonight by Anthony Cosenza from CincyJungle.com, SB Nation's Cincinnati Bengals blog. And you're having a pretty good year over there at Cincy Jungle with the 5-0 Bengals, aren't you?
Yeah, we're pretty pleased about how the team's been performing, and I think the fan base is as well.
So how have the Bengals gone to 5-0 this year? I mean, the Steelers are at what, 3-2? Yeah, they won on
Right.
Monday night. So they're at 3-2. The Ravens are kind of falling apart. The Browns are surprisingly doing, halfway decent. What's going on with the Bengals in the AFC North that's had allowed them to get to 5-0?
Well, they've only played one AFC North team so far this year, and that's the Ravens, and they beat them in Baltimore. So that was kind of a big win. That game, the Bengals, and this has kind of been their MO this year, they shot off to an early lead, kind of hit neutral a little bit towards the middle stages of that game, and then really took it to them in the fourth quarter and came out with a big win. They did that again against Seattle this last weekend. So they've only played one division rival so far, but it's been a combination to get to 5-0. It's been a combination of some timely defensive plays and an increase in pass rush from last year. And Andy Dalton's playing much better brand of football than we've seen him play really his entire pro career. He looks comfortable, he looks confident, and he's hitting guys very often. And I think that has to do with the fact that he's got his full plethora of weapons back and healthy this year.
So talking about the offense a little bit more specifically, they're second in yards gained, fifth in passing yards, 10th in rushing yards. What has made the offense click so well? Is the offensive line playing well? Like you want to explore a little bit about Andy Dalton's game, things like that. What's making this offense click, and what can the Bills do to stop it?
It's a bunch of different things that have been going pretty well for them so far this year, and one is, you mentioned the offensive line. They've been pretty much a top 5 unit the last couple of years, just in terms of if you want to look at Pro Football Focus metrics or a handful of other kind of statistics. They've been really a really solid unit, and I think that has been a key. But they kind of stumbled a little bit last week against Seattle in terms of allowing sacks, but. Even Jeremy Hill has struggled this year, but I think it really has come down to play calling from Hugh Jackson, their offensive coordinator, and the confidence you're seeing from Andy Dalton this year, and his this comfortability in this system and his ability to get the ball to so many different weapons. I think that's been a huge key in terms of what the Bills can do to stifle what the Bengals are doing on offense. It really comes down to pass rush. If they're able to continue to stop the run and somehow crack that Bengals offensive line as Seattle did last week, I think that's going to be huge for Buffalo this week.
AJ Green is pretty good. We keep seeing highlights of him popping up on SportsCenter and everywhere else. What are teams able to jam him at the line? Do you need a guy at the line and somebody over the top to contain him? What's the best way to keep a guy like him in check?
If there's a guy who has been playing, I don't want to say different because the statistical production's still there, but if there is a guy who has kind of seemed like a different football player this year along with Andy Dalton, it's AJ Green, and he's kind of playing angry, and maybe it's just because of the lack of postseason success that he and the rest of the team has endured the past couple of years, but he's playing angry, and some guys have been able to jam him at the line. Some guys have been able to stop him for stretches, but he had an incredible game against Baltimore. He's had a couple of decent games in between, and he had a great start to the Seattle game, and then for the rare occasion, the Seahawks decided to actually move Richard Sherman around their defense and just shadow Green, and that helped a little bit for Seattle, but he still made some catches and made some plays, especially in that comeback. So he's playing well. The entire offense is playing well. You kind of expect it from Green. When he's in the lineup, he's going to make plays. He's going to dazzle you. But, last year he missed a little bit of time. It was the first time in his career he missed any kind of stretch of games. So I think this year he's healthy once again, and he's benefiting from Dalton's play as well.
Last thing I want to talk about with the offense, the Bills have been attacked since the Patriots game by short passes and no huddle offenses and things like that. Not necessarily up tempo, but no huddle, not huddling and allowing the Bills to substitute the guys that they want in for down and distance. Is that something that the Bengals have done a lot of this season, or are they just kind of taking their time, being deliberate, huddling up? Is Dalton taking nice 7-step drops and then delivering the ball, or are they getting the ball out real quick and trying to limit what the defense can do both before the snap and after the snap?
It's a great question. It's been both, and anyone who knows Hugh Jackson and have seen any Bengals games, they would have seen all kinds of wacky formations. I mean, last week alone, they had a couple of times where they had just 3 offensive linemen in front of Andy Dalton, and their left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, was split out as a slot receiver, and then they kind of reshuffled things before the snap occurred. And so they're doing a lot of different things on offense. I think that's kind of a mind game type of thing, but it's also to exploit certain matchups. The good news is a lot of times, especially this year, it's working, and you find a guy that's been running free, and Andy Dalton's been able to hit him maybe in a soft spot of the zone defense or what have you. But the other side of the coin, what has happened that's been a detriment to the Bengals offense has been this wasting of timeouts and burning of timeouts early because there's so much confusion. I think some of these players get a little, they kind of get inside their own heads and they can't really fully understand what their responsibilities are before the snap, and some guys are mislined up and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of comes with the territory in the Hugh Jackson offense, but they've been able to exploit matchups, and a healthy Tyler Eifert at the tight end position has been a huge key to what this offense has been doing this year.
Well, let's switch sides of the ball. The Bengals are 21st in yards allowed, but only 10th in points allowed. How are they limiting what opponents can do in their end, but even though they're giving up lots of different yards?
I'd say, I think you got Geno Atkins, the Pro Bowl defensive tackle. He was coming back from a knee injury last year and didn't look like the same guy. He's been incredible so far this season. He's already surpassed his quarterback sack total from last year alone, just through these 5 weeks. He's been awesome. They brought back Michael Johnson, the defensive end, who just left for 1 year to Tampa Bay and came back to Cincinnati. He's been a good addition. Carlos Dunlap, the other defensive end, has been playing well. So up front, they've been able to pressure the quarterback, which they weren't able to do last year. And I think that's been a huge key to what they've done. But I think they've also kind of adopted this mindset in the secondary, especially with some of the weakness at linebacker that they have. They've adopted this bend but don't break kind of philosophy, which is a little different for a Bengals defense, before in the years prior. So they've kind of said, you know what, we can allow a completion. We can allow them to move the sticks maybe a couple of times, but get the ball carrier down to the ground as soon as possible. Limit yards after the catch. Either force a punt, maybe a field goal, and keep them out of the end zone. And that's what we'll do. And so far, it's kind of been working for them.
If Tyrod Taylor plays this week, and that's a very big if at this point. We're recording this on Tuesday night. By the time this gets to people on Wednesday, he could already been ruled out. So
right.
we'll ask the question based on the fact that if the possibility that he could play. What kind of success have the Bengals had against running quarterbacks? I mean, Tyrod Taylor put the Bills on his back against the Titans last week and scored 2 touchdowns almost single-handedly to put the Bills in the lead and ultimately win the game. How have the Bengals been defending mobile quarterbacks? You played Russell Wilson. I don't know who else has been on your schedule as far as that would be concerned.
It's been a mixed bag, and I say that just from also watching so many Bengals teams and so many Bengals games over so many years. I think, some of the earlier incarnations of Marvin Lewis created Bengals teams, they struggled early in his tenure. They struggled against those guys, but they've been able to shore that up a bit. But some of these guys maybe that they're not too familiar with, like a Russell Wilson, maybe Tyrod Taylor, that could present problems. And you know what? They did get 4 sacks on Russell Wilson last week, but he also escaped a number of different pressures and situations where he should have been brought down to the ground just because of his scrambling ability, and he was able to roll out, make a pass or two, and a big completion. So those kind of guys give him fits a little bit. I will say that the range and the size of the two defensive ends they have, Michael Johnson and Carlos Dunlap, that helps in terms of quarterback contained kind of situations. I can see certain scrambling quarterbacks giving them fits, though, and they play him twice a year every year, and he's not a scrambler per se, but Ben Roethlisberger makes a ton of plays by breaking away from the pocket, maybe shedding a tackler and winging the ball downfield, and I've seen that so many times over the years against the Bengals that he's been able to do that. So, some of those guys can give him fits for sure.
So with or without Tyrod Taylor, what is the Bills' formula for success on Sunday? How can they beat this Bengals team?
Well, I think it's going to come down to them making some big splash plays, either via special teams, maybe get a defensive turnover, pick six, fumble recovery for a touchdown, that sort of thing. And, the Seahawks offense last week only actually accounted for 17 points. They actually recovered a fumble and returned it for a touchdown, and that really looked as if the game was out of reach after that play, and really got that game to be where it was, where the Bengals had to make an incredible comeback for the win. So I think it's going to take certain plays like that, especially if it's a defensive play, to really get this offense out of its rhythm. I think that's going to be a key thing. I also think that there are some weaknesses, as I mentioned, in the secondary. Dre Kirkpatrick was a first-round corner that this team drafted, and he's in his first year as a true starter. He started some games because of injury in the past, but this is the first year they've relied on him as a starter. He's had some good moments. He's had some bad moments, and he still can get beat deep, even though he's got good size and speed. So, Watkins is healthy and Robert Woods can provide a spark, or some other players on the Bills offense can maybe stretch the field a little bit, there might be some opportunities there.
Yeah, that's been Percy Harvin's role so far this year, but Marquise Goodwin came back in his track star speed. He actually had 2 catches last week, which doubled his total from the previous season. So we'll have to figure out what's going to happen with the Bills offense. You never know. I mean, they had Tyrod Taylor on a bum ankle catch this kind of weird pass from Chris Hogan near the goal line last week. I'm like, the guy literally is not. They've been questioning his ankle's integrity for like weeks now, apparently behind the scenes, and they're splitting him out wide for some reason to catch a pass and get tackled by a cornerback near the goal line. It worked out okay because he eventually threw a touchdown pass on the drive, but I mean, just it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, we're not here to talk about play calling issues, but the Bills do have the speed to kind of take advantage of that secondary if they really want to, and that's something we're looking for. What about tight ends? How have they done so far defending tight ends? Charles Clay has had a very big role on this squad so far, except when the teams are double teaming and scheming to get him out of the game, like they have been able to do since Sammy Watkins has been gone.
Yeah. Tight ends, again, early in Marvin Lewis's head coaching career, that was a big problem for his defenses, but that's really cleaned up really since Mike Zimmer came in as the defensive coordinator and has since left for Minnesota. But they've really cleaned that portion up of their defense. They've been able to defend these guys pretty well. That being said, the last couple times the Bengals faced the Dolphins, Charles Clay had a couple of good games against the Bengals defense. Now, that's been a couple of years ago. There's probably some different cast members now on this defense than, from 2013 or a couple of other years past. But he's definitely a weapon, and he's a guy that they're going to have to keep an eye on. And the Bengals have 2 pretty good safeties in Reggie Nelson and George Aloka. They get tasked with covering sometimes even slot receivers, but tight ends and other players. But really if there is a weak link in the Bengals defense, it's that linebacker group. They're still missing Vontaze Burfict, who was on that IR designated to return. He'll probably, after this game, they have a bye week and then they face the Steelers. So the plan is he'll probably be back for that game against the Steelers, but he won't be out there this week. And he is a former Pro Bowl linebacker, and they've really missed him. So they have a good coverage guy in Emmanuel Lemur, who's a linebacker, but even he has been shaky a little bit this year. That could be a matchup that they look to exploit.
Okay. Well, we've been talking with Anthony Cosenza from Cincy Jungle. I thank you very much for your insight. And you can, of course, check out all their stuff at cincyjungle.com. They got a great site over there, so make sure you go check it out. We'll be posting some stuff on our Twitter feed and Facebook page this week. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, appreciate the time.